Hi everyone, it's Cat. Well, me cat, not this cat that you're looking at. Person cat, not kitty cat. By the way, this kitty cat is named Ellie, and she's my best friend slash daughter. And this is her playing with her fish that she got for her birthday. She turned 2 on March 1st. So happy birthday to my baby. Anyhow, I didn't want to be on camera today, so you get to see her cuteness instead. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm Kat. This is my cat. Lots of things on my channel will be to do with cats. Anyhow, I decided that I was going to make myself a bunch of prompts for art and craft ideas. So a couple weeks ago, I made a video where I made a little decorative box to put those prompts in. So I will link that down below if you'd like to see that video. Part of this whole idea that I had was, besides helping me to get rid of art block, it's also going to help me use up things that are in my stash because I keep collecting things and I have for many years, and things have just been sitting there not used. So I'm determined to use up as much of my stash as I can over the next year or so. So you will see me pull out of that box pretty frequently. Sometimes I will stop to do holiday projects or if I think of a special idea. So you won't always be me pulling prompts, but a lot of the next few videos probably will be that. So I really hope that you enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And I think Ellie fell asleep from all the excitement, so why don't we go ahead and waste some talent? First up, I am going to make our animals. As you can see, not all of my choices are horses. And also you will see there's 2 horses there on the table. I actually only use 1. I was originally going to do 6 animals and then felt that 5 fit better. I'm just using a little hand drill to put a hole through the middle. And then I'm going to insert a miniature wood dowel, which I got in a pack from Walmart. This is a Lazy Susan mechanism. I don't know what exactly the name is for it besides that. I had bought a pack of them on Amazon for a previous project, and I thought that I could use one for this. So this is a foam round from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just placing my Lazy Susan in the middle, and I'm just using a ball stylus to just carve out a space for it. Now here's where I made my first error. I don't know why, but I was just thinking I could round off the edges of this wood plank from Dollar Tree and that would make my base. But then once I cut that out, I realized that when I turn it, it's not going to be hidden underneath. So I actually need it to be a full circle. So I'm just using my compass to do that. And I'm just using my craft scissors to cut this wood. It's pretty thin, and the Tim Holtz scissors are pretty strong. They can handle it. Now I'm going to take some old Aliens tacky glue. Aliens is thick anyway, but I feel like this was extra goopy because it's old. And I filled in that cavity I made, and I'm going to stick that mechanism down in there. Then just to make sure that it's really going to stay, I'm gluing some paper over the top. And you can see I have some aliens on the other side of my Lazy Susan. And then I'm also going to add E6000 just to make sure that it's a really strong hold. I wasn't sure how well the aliens would hold up on metal. And then I flipped it over and I'm putting some weight on the other side. I'll go ahead and let that dry. Once it's dry, I'm making a center for the carousel using a piece of packaging from a Dollar Tree Yahtzee game. And I'm just using my eye and the tallest animal to figure out how tall that needed to be. And then I'll glue that down to the center using some alines. And I decided to paint this with a dark gray just in case anything shows through, it won't show white. And I'm using hot glue to make sure that that's really stuck on there. Now I'm mixing up some epoxy sculpt. This is only black because I bought black by accident, but you can paint over it. So I'm going to use this to decorate the animals. And I don't want to torture you to watch me do this to 5 animals because it took me several hours to sculpt even just this little bit of sculpting because I'm not very good at it and it was very tiny. So for the elephant, I added some cuffs around all of his ankles, and then I'm just going to cut a little tiny triangle to put on his head. And the epoxy sticks to this plastic pretty well without any like adhesive under it or anything like that. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's 12:30 and I guess I am tired. And after I squish down his little headpiece, I'm going to just cut out a simple rectangle and use that as the blanket for his back. I guess that's more of a square. But I'll just stick that on and press it down like I did with the headpiece. And then I'm going to stick that wood dowel back inside so that I can make the hole through the blanket as well. And just kind of pat it down around there. And that's what that looks like. And then I didn't film it, but I did also extend the tusks and I added another band to the elephant's tail. Now I'm going to make some flooring for the bottom of the carousel, so I'm just brushing on some more alines. I took the rest of what was in that bottle and mixed it with a bit of water so it's a little bit thinner. And these skinny sticks also came from Walmart. Once I get them in place, I'm just taping them mostly so that end one doesn't fall off because it was a little bit shorter and not entirely on there and I was afraid I might lose it. And then I just repeat on the other side. And then for the 2 side areas, I'm going to use some sticks that have been cut down into smaller pieces. Tape that up, put the weights back on, and let it dry. Now I'm going to put a coat of gesso on all of the animals before I paint them, and that will help, to hide the black of the epoxy. I could have left the animals the way they were and just painted the details that I added with the clay, but I thought that it would be much cuter if we did a pastel theme. And I am again only going to show you me painting one animal so that I don't bore you to death. So I mixed up some custom pastel colors and I am just applying those. For the giraffe's whole body, I did a light tan color, and then I'm using my pastels to make his hair a little bit of a rainbow. And then I meticulously painted in all of the giraffe spots in different gradients of pastel colors. And it took forever. But I think it looks really pretty. And I'm happy with the way it came out, so I'm glad that I took the time to do it. Now that my base is dry, I'm going to go ahead and clip off all of the excess wood. And then I will sand it down to make sure that it's even with all of the edges. Now I didn't show it, but I did go ahead and paint all of those clay details gold. And now I am putting adhesive size on there to gold leaf them. So even though it's gold paint, I wanted it to be really, really gold, so I thought the gold leafing would look really pretty. And I did the base coat of gold first, just in case my gold leaf doesn't stick to every point. If anything peeks through, it's just going to be a lighter shade of gold, so I thought that would look better than if white or black were poking through underneath the gold leaf. And then once that's done, I'm just going to add a few details of acrylic paint and pastel colors using my dotting tool. And I'm also going to paint the sticks for the poles of our animals. And I will also gold leaf those as well, but I'm not going to show you every time I gold leaf because that would get boring. I'm going to gesso over the middle tube here that we have on our base so that you don't see all of that Yahtzee wording coming through. And you might notice that the base is now brown. I originally had painted it with some antique wax by Waverly, but I do end up deciding to paint over that later, so I did not show you that. But if you're wondering why it's brown, that's why. Also, you might notice that it's wrapped in masking tape. I had this metal ribbon that I used to edge the bottom, and I forgot to film me putting it on there. So that masking tape is just holding it in place while it dries. Now this little mold I purchased on Amazon. I'm coating it with some cornstarch, and I'm using some Crayola, or as the nerdy crafter calls it, crapola, which is true in this case. Some crapola air dry clay to make some mirrors. This is not the best clay for this job, but I made it work. So once I smooth my piece into the mold, I then carefully have to pry it out. As you can see, I'm going very slowly because it's already wanting to crack and break and it's still wet. And then I just remove any excess with a craft knife, and I will let those dry completely before I paint them. Now this was my brilliant idea of how to get my animals in place. I figured out the placement on my top piece, and then I used the skewers or sticks to poke down into the bottom with some paint so it made a little black dot so that I would know where to drill the holes. Except that when I started to drill the holes, I realized that they were way off and not the same distance from the edge or the center. So I ended up going through with my ruler and adjusting that situation. Now that these are dry, I'm giving them a gold base coat, and then they will also get a treatment of gold leafing as well. And I'm taking this piece of sticky mirror type stuff. It was supposed to be stuck onto my turntable that I purchased, but I didn't want it for that. But I did keep it in case I could use it, so I am using it. This has an adhesive backing on it, and it also has a protective film on it. So as you can see there, I just pulled off the film. It's much shinier. And I'm taking some E6000 and spreading that on the frame and then sticking the mirror on. And you might have noticed that this mirror frame is actually completely broken because it cracked. So this mirror backing actually helps that stay in place. And then because I always worry about perfection, I did decide to put a gray base coat on the bottom as well in case anything peeks out. And I'm also doing that to the top as well. And that circle that's in there is just for reference for me to figure out where to put the horses. And I just made that circle again with the compass. I made another set of molded shapes with a different mold that I have, again using the crapola clay. And I'm just gluing those around our base. I'm using Aleene's glue to attach them, and I am doing this while they are still wet. And I'll do that on both the top and the bottom of our center cylinder. Once that's all dry, I'm taking some plaster by Waverly and I'm coating everything. So you can see here that I went over that brown wood floor with that as well. And now you can see the detail of that metal ribbon that I attached. It was like a galvanized silver color originally, and I painted it with the chalk paint. Here is where I make mistake number 3, I think, at this point. I was trying to save myself some trouble with the crapola clay by making my little filigree edges with hot glue, which does work. However, trying to attach them to the project afterwards was a complete disaster. So I am leaving this in because I do use these for something else, so it was not a complete waste of time. Once I take this out of the mold, I will then just take some scissors and cut off any excess glue that's sticking out where it doesn't need to be. And once they're dry, or excuse me, once they're cut out, they're dry pretty instantly, they're glue. But anyway, once they're done, I do give them the gold paint treatment, and then I will gold leaf those too. And now I'm showing you that I am painting those little circles on our base, which was a waste of time because when I try to glue on that filigree, it messes it all up and I end up having to repaint it later. But I wanted you to have a nice up close shot, so there you are. And I'm going to do the same thing to these little clay pieces that we added as well. And I'm just going around in rainbow order with my pastels. Then I decided that I ought to cover up all of the holes. I was using this to stick things in it when they were drying, so there's a bunch of holes in it and it looks pretty gross. Even though it's going to be the ceiling of the carousel and probably no one will ever see it, I was compelled to fix it because I can't help myself. So to fill this in, I'm just using some drywall spackle that's been mixed with PVA glue, like a Elmer's glue. And while I was doing that, I did make sure I stuck a little bit of wood dowel into each hole where the horses actually are going to go so that I don't lose those holes when I'm putting it together later. And I'm just kind of swirling those around to get the excess spackle out of there before I let it dry. And now I'm going to go in with the gold paint all the way around the edges of these little decorative pieces we added. And again, once it's dry, I will go ahead with the gold leafing. Now I'm going to make the roof. I cut a circle with my compass and I figured out the angles with my it's not a protractor, is it? I can't remember the name of that, but I used the thingy that figures out angles. I used that to make this into 6 equal pieces, and I'm just transferring that onto a piece of cardboard. This is packing material, but it's basically the same thickness as like a cereal box. And I'm scoring this using a Cricut scoring tool, but you could use scissors if you don't have a scoring tool. And I'm just going to fold on all of those score lines, and then I'm going to cut one of my wedges out of this cardboard pie. I'm using this wedge as a guide to cut out a piece of paper in the same shape. And then I'm going to coat that in some Aleene's tacky glue and set it to the side while I tape the roof together. So I'm taping the 2 edges where that pie was cut out. And then I'm going to flip that over and use that piece of paper like a band-aid to hold this together. And then I'm going back to the mirrors that we made. I'm using some Aleenes to glue these onto our center tube. I'm putting one mirror in front of each hole where the horses are going to go, so there'll be a mirror behind each horse. Now I'm taking all of my painted animals and I am inserting them with some glue into the holes that I drilled, and then I'm slipping those dowels through the holes in the top. And before I squish that all the way down, I'm going to put hot glue all the way around the edge so that it's nice and secure. And then I'm just going to trim off the extra sticks that are coming out of the top. Now I'm taking some scrap foam and I'm going to attach that to our roof, which looks like an adorable umbrella. I'm just using this toothpick as a placeholder because I will be adding something to the top later, and I wanted to make sure that I had a hole for it, and I'm using a toothpick as its base, so I wanted to make sure that fits. Now I realized that with all my hard work and brilliant ideas of trying to get these horses in here straight, it didn't work. So thankfully this is foam. So what I'm doing here is just carving a channel to be able to move the stick into the proper position so that my animal is standing up straight and not leaning over. And once it's in the right spot where I like it, I'm going to add some hot glue into the hole that I made so that it can't move out of place. And I did have to do that for all 5 of them, so not a single one came out straight. Yay me. And now is where I gave in and decided to go ahead and make my filigree border using the crapola clay. So I'm doing the same thing that I did earlier with the cornstarch, only this time I am turning the mold over and squishing it into my glass mat, which makes it stick to the mat and pull out of the mold. And then I am, trimming the edges with the X-Acto knife, and I'm using a clay tool to get everything shaped nicely, and I'm very carefully pulling it off of my cutter. And as you can see, even wet, crapola wants to crack immediately, but that's okay. I don't mind cracks and imperfections because this is handmade and that just makes it look more special. I'm using again the method of attaching it with the Aleene's glue while it's still wet. My camera's not focusing very well, I do apologize. And I will go all the way around the edge of the bottom with this. Now I'm going to put a coat of gesso onto our roof, both on the inside and the outside. And when that's dry, I'm going to go ahead and put some pastel colors on. I do 1 color for each of the 5 sections. And this is me going back in and repainting those dots again. Then, because I like making work for myself, I decided that this whole thing was too white. So I am going in with a very tiny brush and I am painting the cylinder yellow and I'm painting our wood floor green. And now I'm going to use those the hot glue borders that I made earlier that were a fail. I salvaged them and I'm going to use them on the roof. Because they are also made out of hot glue, these will stick very easily and securely with just hot glue. And now I'm taking some more of those miniature dowels and I'm going to use them to trim out the edges to make this look a little fancier. And you can see I haven't finished the border on the outside yet. That's because I didn't feel like doing any more gold leafing at the moment. So I'm going to do some other stuff first before I'm forced to go back to that. And I didn't pre-paint these, so I am just going in and painting them gold. And once that's in place, I will gold leaf it as well. And here I am gluing on the finial, I think is what it's called. I made this out of the mold that you can see on the right, which is also from Amazon. I just filled the fleur-de-lis shape twice and then glued the two together back to back, and I inserted a toothpick in between them so I could stick it in the top. And then I took that mirror mold I used earlier and I filled up the other larger mirror, and I made 5 of those, and I'm painting them gold and also gold leafing them and mirror backing them. And once those mirrors are completed, I am using them to decorate the roof. And with these, I did also use Aleene's, but I decided to use a little bit of hot glue as well because I wanted to make sure they don't slide down while it's drying. Now I'm going to put a coat of Aleene's all over this air dry clay. It is dry at this point, but it's so crumbly. I want to make sure that I can paint this and it's not going to fall apart. So I did a coat of Aleene's. And then I'm sticking on some cork backing that I got from Dollar Tree, just to make sure this doesn't scrape the table. Here I had decided that I didn't like that you could sort of see the Lazy Susan, so I'm just going all the way around the edge with some skinny sticks, and I'm just poking them into the foam and trimming them down. And it's sort of like a picket fence. You can see it here, what I mean. And I go all the way around the entire edge like that. And then I squeeze some hot glue down in there so that they're really stuck on and aren't going to fall out like loose teeth. And then I'm also taking some more of my spackle and glue mixture and I'm putting that on the other side between my fence and the edge so that I can fill in that gap, but also to make sure that it's really securely in place. Once the spackle dried, I needed to sand down all of this because it was very crooked and also was hanging down too low, so my Lazy Susan wasn't turning. And I was not about to sit there and hand sand this for an hour, so I used my Dremel. And then I am just hand sanding to get it smooth. Once that's done, I am going to give this a coat of blue paint to add another pop of color. And as a last step, I'm going to varnish everything to make sure that it's all nice and protected. And I used the matte varnish by Waverly because that was the closest thing to me. And I coated everything, including the horses. I'm just showing you here how the Lazy Susan works. Doesn't spin super freely, but at least this way, if it's on a shelf and someone wants to look at a different animal, they can spin it without having to pick it up. Also, I used hot glue to attach the roof. I forgot to show you that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. Please comment, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you think you might ever try something like this yourself. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I would love to have you around. Okay, thank you everybody. Stay safe and healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye.